Annex Building, and we're calling this meeting to order for the Facilities and Program Committee. We have a quorum present. We have Gerardo Martinez, Art Rendon, and myself, Daisy Zamora. The first item in our agenda is presentation and discussion on the request for proposal for printing and mailing services for utility bills and reminders.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. My name is Estrella Solórzano. I am the Director of Customer Services. I oversee our billing and collections departments. And today, Joe Amaya, who's our billing and collections manager, will be doing the presentation for this item. Also to assist in answering some of the questions if needed, Norma Gomez, CIS manager, is also available. Okay.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Joe Maya. I'm the Billing and Collections Manager. And this morning, my presentation is going to be over the printing and mailing services for the bills and reminder notices. As we get started, I want to cover the process as it is today. Currently, on a daily basis, we have an average of about 2,850 bills that are printed into an electronic format. Those bills are actually then passed on to the vendor, because right now we are outsourcing this process. We've had a vendor that's been handling this process for the last 3 years. Once those files are sent over via an online portal, we receive notification that they've been received. The vendor then goes ahead and does the printing. They put them in envelopes and they mail them out. During this process, of course, there's a quality control check that they go over. And once everything's pretty much wrapped up, they send it over to the U.S. Post Office. The same process is also followed for reminder notices. Reminder notices is actually the notifications we send our customers whenever they are, for example, maybe the payment didn't go through, or when they're about to be disconnected, among other things. I do want you to keep in mind that number, the 2,850 bills on a daily basis. That's an annual base. On an annual basis, we're looking at just below 700,000 pieces of mail. When we look at the costs as they stand today, on a yearly basis, we're averaging about $499,000. That number may seem a little high. However, when we used to handle the process in-house before we started with the vendor as of 3 years ago, that process used to be more expensive. So that number right there actually is a cost-effective savings for the company. So keep that in mind as well. On a monthly basis, that can be broken down to be $41,580. We're looking at about averaging 72 cents per mailing unit, and the average annual cost per customer ends up being about $8.68. So at this point, we went for proposal. This is the third time that, or the third year that the contract's already going over. It's coming due, and there were 7 proposals received. And here we have those companies listed. We had DataPros, SureBill, InfoSend, Kubra, One-to-One Communications, Usual, and VeryVerge. What we did internally, we formed an internal committee. That internal committee consisted of VPB administrators, managers, directors, and a director. It's important to know that it also consisted of individuals from different departments. So we had a presentation representation from the billing department, CIS, purchasing department, and customer service as well. All in all, we came up, we felt that there were 3, after we were done with rating, there were 3 vendors that best fit our needs. And they were DataPros, Kubra, and InfoSend. Even though we have them ranked there 1, 2, and 3, I do want you to also know that DataPros and Kubra had the exact same rating, and with a 1-point difference being with InfoSend. So we had kind of like a 2 one-way tie, and the second choice, or the second rank was InfoSend. Here are the range of prices from greatest to least. So you can see that some of the vendors charge on an annual basis just below $659,000, and that the lowest one starts at just about $486,000. Those that we rated as being able to do what we need is are listed right here. We have Kubra, InfoSend, and DataPros, just so you can kind of see a little bit of where they stand in reference to cost. You can see DataPros at the lowest, Kubra tends to be on the higher end, InfoSend to be in the mid-range. A little bit about those 3 vendors. When it comes to InfoSend, they have over 27 years of experience with over 400 clients in the utility service. Their production facilities here in Carlton, Texas. They have extensive experience when it comes to working with Cayenta, which is a system that we actually use. They do manufacture their own envelopes as well. They offer the insertion process that can be very specific to any settings that we have within our system, which all in all pretty much becomes a cost-saving process for us. They do have a online communication tool, which is what gets used to be to upload those files that I initially talked about. That handles the whole printing process, gives us an update as those bills are being processed throughout the printing. And then they do have, for example, other entities that they work with that do use the Cayenta process as well. Some of those customers in this case include City of Mesquite, Longview, San Marcos, Rancho California Water District, and their largest utility customers include, as listed there, Modesto Irrigation District, City of Long Beach, Irvine Ranch Water District, etc. Next, we have Data Pros. They have more than 30 years of experience with 400 clients in the utility services. They're in Coppell, Texas. They have 3 facilities across the country. They also have an online portal. They call it DP Auto. That's where the printouts get uploaded, and then they in turn print them out, get them processed. They do have a clear implementation process that they try to achieve within 60 days. They are familiar, once again, with Harry's computer systems, which is the one that oversees Cayenta. They have a backup plan that consists of performing printing at alternate sites. If there's ever any issues, they can transfer the workload to another facility. And their customers also include the City of Fort Worth, Hawaiian Telecom, and they have CoServe Electric Cooperative, which is another cooperative within Texas. Last, we have Cubra. They have more than 30 years of experience. They have a production site in Coppell, Texas. They have 4 facilities across the country, and they process about 500 million mail pieces on an annual basis. They service 68 of the top 100 gas and electric companies in North America. Their location maintains, as they state, 50% capacity to allow for redundancy. If there's ever any issues with one of the facilities having trouble, they can then pass that workload onto another one that they feel should be able to accommodate based on their capacity. They have an online portal called DocWeb as well. This is the one where files will actually be uploaded. And again, we get to see the whole printing process. They do have familiarity with Harris Utilities, which includes Cayenta. Their backup plan is also based on shifting operations, as I mentioned. And some of their customers include the City of Charlotte, Kitchener, the Metropolitan District, Duke Energy, Sacramento Municipal Utility District. Our recommendation, once we rated and review the plans that were submitted, we do recommend approval to finalize a contract with InfoSend. And this is, of course, so that we can continue to do our monthly printing and mailing services for bills and reminder notices. We do want to go a little bit over the pros and cons for transparency. When it comes to InfoSend, as you know, right now we're looking at making bill changes. You may have heard already or seen that there are some changes that we wish to implement. Keeping that in mind, some of the pros as we continue is we already have an established relationship with InfoSend. That vendor that I mentioned that we've had for the last 3 years has been InfoSend. They have an understanding of our work dynamic. We kind of have a communication process established. I think they have an understanding of what we need as well, because the last 3 years we've had a solid relationship. There is a well-known system and process. Our employees, for example, they understand how to upload the bills, how to work with the information as needed. So that makes it a little easier since the current system is already in place. Additionally, they do have the ability to handle our needs. When it comes to the other vendors, for example, Data Pros, they do consider themselves a small operation. Most of their client needs are about a third of the needs that we have here at DPUB. So their normal production is going to be about what I mentioned initially. We needed about 700,000 mail pieces a year. So in this case, most of their operation includes customers needing about 200,000 pieces on an annual basis. So they're definitely a small operation. Cubra is definitely a big operation. Their clients, on most bases, they end up needing 2 to 3 times our requirements. I think I was described earlier, they do handle about 68 out of the 100 top utility companies in North America. So they definitely have a big operation going on. InfoSend tends to have comparable vendors or entities that they print out for, comparable to our requirements. So that's kind of saying they're kind of like the Goldilocks. We have Data Pros, that is the smaller operation. We have Kubra, that's a bigger operation. And then we have InfoSend, who operates with other entities that have our similar needs. For us, that feels that if there's ever a time of need, that we have somebody that can attend to our needs. We're not the small fish in the pond, or vice versa. We're not just going to be a generic take your number, follow whatever process is needed. So that's why we feel that InfoSend has another area where it's stronger. The primary con, and the only con that we see, is that the price difference is $50,500 between InfoSend and Data Pros. Kubra is a little bit more expensive, over $100,000 more, and the only difference is this. If we continue, then the next step that we can expect is we're going to continue business as normal because we already have InfoSend in place. So that allows us to once again focus our energies on what I mentioned, the possibility of enhancing the bill, getting feedback, and make changes as needed, which allows us to finalize that new bill template. We then continue to collaborate with InfoSend to implement the new bill. And lastly, we continue to coordinate with our internal CIS support department, so that way we can continue to get the bills as we normally do, and we keep uploading them. So by keeping InfoSend, again, we keep pretty much the business the way it is, allowing us to focus on our bill changes. If we end up selecting a different vendor, it's important to know that we would have to start a transition process. We have to start communicating with the vendor. Some of them can, again, be anywhere between 60 days up to 90 days before the full transition. We will still need to continue to finalize the bill template. We will still need to coordinate with our CIS team to make sure that we get the templates that are needed to continue to upload and provide the vendor that information. We will have to work on a contract extension right now because there is going to be that transition period if we go to a new vendor. We will need to train our staff as well. That requires them understanding the new whatever system they provide. And then we would have to just continue to implement the project on an ongoing basis. What questions do you have?
You have a question?
Yeah, I have.
Go ahead.
So this is for 1 year?
1 year.
Okay. And what kind of issues have you had, not specific, well, I guess you can talk about InfoSend, but in general with this process?
Well, I can tell you a bit in this position about 9 months. I've not seen issues, but I guess I can turn it over.
I guess potential issues, right, in this process, meaning, are there delayed? Like what are some of the typical issues with this type of service?
Right. So the main concern is always going to be once we pass out a file, make sure that it gets printed correctly. So in the beginning, that transition period, if we maintain the same vendor, things are already, we're not going to face the hiccup. If we go to a new vendor, there's going to be that testing phase, if you will. That testing phase is one of the things, the manpower that comes with it. There has to be quality control. The quality control has to be done in-house as well, where we are going to have to review. So that eliminates the people that are available to focus on other things. Mainly, like I said, right now we're focusing on implementing the new bill. Those bill changes also have to go through quality control. So now we're going to have two wheels where we have to do quality control versus having just the one where we can say, hey, we're just going to transition to a bill, but we already know that the vendor is able to continue to do the process as normal. So manpower is one of the concerns too, how fast they can turn around and give us the changes that we need, and just ongoing quality control.
How fast can they turn around changes?
They're looking at, well, some of the changes can, depending on what we're requesting, of course. We're looking at the implementation up to 90 days, they can say, and then anything else depends on the complexity of what we may ask, maybe 30 days if we just say we want to change, maybe, for example, coloring, formatting, logo, that kind of thing. Those are the simple ones. So that can vary. But most of them are saying within the same time range, 30 to 90 days.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just make a couple of comments. Okay, so to be clear on this, we're using the same company. You want to recommend the same company?
Correct.
And the price, the value has increased or decreased?
The price has gone up, but the price difference is about $50,000. The way that we compensate the price difference is man hours to transition, as well as the 60 to 90 day time frame where we're going to have to utilize in both the transition, so that we need to continue to send out bills.
How long have they been with us already?
This is the third and last year.
All right.
Yeah,
So then you
I
have-
think, sorry to interrupt, Art, I think the question he's asking is, from what we're paying them last year, has there been a change to what they're quoting for next year?
Yes, the change is just based on rates.
So it is at 50,000?
The 50,000 is just a comparison with the lowest bidder to the new rate that they're proposing us. We're looking at about, I think it was like $40,000 difference.
But I think Art is asking about last year.
Right, so
Right.
when you compare last year rate for InfoSend to this year, it's about $40,000 difference. It's important to know that the rate or the specific number can vary because, for example, reminder notices. If all our customers don't have to be reminded of anything, well, that's going to be cost savings to the organization. So that's why if we look at rough estimates, we're saying the rate that they have as of this year, moving on to the new contract, it's about a $40,000 difference.
Look, I understand that you guys want to stay with the same company. It probably makes it a little easier to continue the process. They've already been with us 3 years. I'd like y'all to go back and talk to them about renegotiating their price if they want to work with us. You have 2 other companies that are much higher. You have one at 644 and 658, and then you have a couple of companies that are down below at 517, 513. I don't understand why, we've discussed this before, why sometimes we don't talk to these companies about negotiating the price. That's a little bit more reasonable. I don't understand why we have to pay up another $40,000, $50,000 for this identical work. And I do understand that, well, I don't understand that there are actually more customer numbers or they're less. But those are my thoughts.
Right, and we can negotiate the contract once we are authorized to negotiate with a vendor. Because it's an RFP,
Okay.
we don't communicate with vendors, purchasing department communicates with them directly. Once we are able to finalize the contract, which would be a recommendation on the board meeting, the authority for DPD staff to negotiate a contract with the selected vendor. We will name the vendor that we recommend, but ultimately the board will decide whether that vendor is appropriate or if we should select another vendor. And at that point, we can go back and negotiate the pricing. We can talk to purchasing to see if we can do that sooner, right? But that's something that we need to go back to purchasing. It's important also to note that the number that we show in regards to the overall cost is an approximate cost. This is based on the number that we provided on the proposal on what we anticipated our meeting needs to be. But like Joe said, those might change. So it can go up or down depending on the quantity of mail that we send out. But on the rate, I understand.
Yeah, and I think you guys are doing a good job. I've been here a little bit more time to understand this process. But I just think there's always room for negotiations, there's always room for savings for this utility. And I encourage y'all to take a look at that as we move down the road. Now, if this recommendation moves forward to the board, and then you guys can do what you need to do to work with the vendor and negotiate with it. That's the recommendation of this committee.
Yeah, one quick comment based on that is maybe if we look at it on a per mailing basis, right? Because what you're saying is like we're telling them what we're estimating for the year, and they're costing us based on that price. But I guess if you were to divide the total number divided by whatever quantity of mailouts that you sent them, we can compare on a per mailing for each one. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Instead of focusing on the top number, I guess it would be the same, right? Yeah.
We provided an overall.
Yeah. So it's the same total. So yeah, it'll be the same
Be a
difference.
breakdown to see what the rates for individual.
Someone, anything else?
No, nothing else. I also want to clarify that even though there's about a $50,000 cost difference between InfoSend and DataPros, because of that extra cost, when you would have, for at least a couple of months, two companies hired at the same time, then there's, the cost difference then washes out. So that would be, that would be also important to consider. But if the committee is fine, we can move forward with this recommendation.
I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
Move the recommendation forward to the board, and then as we spoke, or as we talked a few minutes about possibly negotiating the price a little bit.
We'll bring back the item. We won't have a presentation at the board meeting and bring it to the full board. Is that what, just to confirm that I understand, or do you want to bring it as a consent with the idea that we are going to negotiate a contract? It's up to the committee.
We can bring it back to the whole board and have a brief discussion that the committee reviewed it and we're recommending it with an agreement that you all would renegotiate as much as possible the contract once it's approved.
And it could be a much shorter presentation, like half of this.
Reader's Digest version.
Right. Maybe one slide. There you go.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, presentation and discussion on Brownsville Public Utilities Board cyber liability insurance.
Okay, like mentioned earlier, my name is Estrella Solórzano. I am the Director of Customer Services. I'm going to be presenting items 2 to 5. With me today is Acting Risk Manager Luis Russell. He has been overseeing the insurance renewal and supporting and gathering all the information to make sure that we have renewal quotes for policy year 2023-2024. With that, the first item on today's agenda regarding insurances is our cyber insurance. A very brief background. We actually have a very good renewal this year. As you know, cyber has been, it's been a topic of conversation in the past, but we actually have a very good renewal. This is our second year of a 3-year option to renew by the board. This item was approved by the board on September 12, 2022. We were approved to come back and request board's approval to move forward with a second year. We plan to do this on the board meeting. I am going to limit on the conversation on the terms of the policy, just because it's cyber. We can bring that back in closed item if that's needed during the board meeting. However, we are recommending the renewal as offered by our current broker, who's McGriff, with our current insurance carrier for the policy year 2022-2023. They did provide us 2 different options. So a recommendation will include the option that we feel is best for our renewal. Again, we can bring this option, we can bring the presentation back on closed meeting if that's needed, because of the topic that we're discussing.
Agree.
And there's not a lot of changes, positive change. There's all the changes that we see are positive. There is one item that I will point out, and we can do that. It can be a very brief conversation under closed meeting for a board meeting. That's not a problem.
I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
That's fine. Thank you.
Move it forward.
Can we move on to the next item?
Item 3, presentation and discussion on Brownsville Public Utilities Board Directors and Officers Liability and Employment Practices Liability Insurance.
Perfect, thank you. And I apologize, I did forget to mention that on the line with us is Nancy Sylvester. She is one of our consultants with Arthur J. Gallagher. Arthur J. Gallagher assists with the review of our renewals for property and liability. These are all liability renewals. They renew on the same date every year. So she can answer any additional questions that the board may have as we move forward. With the directors and officers and employment practices liability insurance, again, this item was approved by the board on September 12, 2022. It was approved for 3 years with the board's option to renew at the end of this year. It's the 3rd year, so we did request the proposal, or the request for renewal did start with a request for our insurance carrier to give us a renewal quote. This would be for policy term September 30th, 2020. it actually expires on September 30th, 2023, so it would be October 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2024. That's our renewal period for the liability insurance. We did receive two options for the board to consider. We are recommending we move forward with option one because option one is a lower retention and the price difference is minimal. As you can see in our renewal terms, unfortunately, we will be seeing increases in retention or a deductible. This is the amount of DTE is responsible prior to the policy coverage triggering or them being able to pay out on a policy. We are moving from a 250,000 to a 350,000. That's option one. Option two would be to move to a 500,000 for deductible, which is DTE's responsibility for the coverage is triggered. It is important to know that the price difference is about $2,000. As you can see, option one is 104,236. Option two is 102,462. So the price difference is very minimal compared to the amount of difference in the retention. Now, I understand that these are intangible products, right? These are services that you purchase and you wish never to use, right? But you purchase peace of mind, something that is going to make us feel comfortable in the event that we have to do that. And we purchase something knowing with the retention that we can afford. More than likely, we will be able to afford a $500,000 deductible, but the difference in pricing from one policy quote to another, we don't think is sufficient enough to recognize $500,000, which is why we are recommending option one renewal with the board's authorization to move forward.
At this point, if there are any questions on the cost from the committee, we can talk about those.
I think we can bring it forward to the board, I mean, and so the board can make a decision. So that one.
It would be on closed session as well.
That will be an open.
I would want it in closed session too. Yes.
Estrella, on this type of coverage, with your experience, give us an example of a incident that will trigger this type of coverage.
Those
Only
conversations-
questions on costs at this moment.
I understand. And those items can be disclosed in closed session. We can
Okay.
give you item number one of closed session. We can give you some of the claims that we have, and we can discuss that there during the board meeting, sir. Most definitely. I can bring that. We can make a note.
Okay, thank you.
Not a problem.
We're going to advance this item?
Yes.
Do you want us to bring us back in closed session?
Yes, please.
We will work with legal to see what, how to proceed with bringing it back to closed session. Thank you. Okay.
Item 4. Yes. Presentation and discussion on Brownsville Public Utilities Board excess umbrella liability insurance.
Perfect. For the excess umbrella liability insurance, the board approved this item again as well on September 12, 2022, with the board's option to renew at the end of each policy year. This is the third year and the final year with the board's option to renew. The policy term as well is October 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2024. So our policy does expire on September 30th at 11:59 p.m. Just to talk a little bit about this insurance is excess. So we do have a general liability insurance policy that covers us for up to $1 million, right? This will cover anything in excess of that. It's for third-party damages or third-party claims as well. Now I can go over the options for renewal, Ms. Daisy, before, just based on the feedback from the last presentation, or we're ready to present the options for renewal. This one doesn't change much except for the premium. There is a change in premium, so I would just be presenting the change in premium and the underlying limits of coverage.
Would it be okay if you do the presentations here during the open meeting and then we can discuss any questions right now during closed session? I mean, so that we can get the, all answers questions that are, or questions answered that are beyond the cost, as opposed to having to take it to the board for that.
So the agenda does state that the
Yes,
BBB board can adjourn to closed meeting, so we can do that if you want after. You want us to do that individually or at the end of the closed session?
At the end.
At the end of this open session, yes?
Right, yes.
Okay.
So we can go through all the presentations and then
Okay.
and then we can discuss them further.
Perfect. So we can, just as an effort, we can go over the present or any additional questions then. Again, the difference in this one is about $50,000. There are, in regards to the premium, this is a renewal as well, so we just need approval from the board for us to move forward to request binding of the coverage.
$50,000 less?
No, more.
More.
Right. We are seeing an increase in our premiums, Mr. Rendon, because our exposures are increasing. So we have either more fleet or more vehicles out in the field. We're also seeing that the market conditions, that it impacts everybody. So everybody kind of has to take a little bit of a piece of the pie when there's an increase in risks in the environment as well. And Nancy can speak more to that. She is available to see if you have any questions regarding premium impacts, but we are seeing that. Now, I know that in the past, Mr. Rendon, you've asked us to bring these items sooner. We do have issues with that because of when the underwriters are able to release the quotes. We were lucky enough to get them before 30 days. Normally, we have to wait 30 days prior to the expiration of the policy for us to even receive a quote. But we did get them prior, and we're able to bring them to the board on the scheduled board meeting. But I know that has been feedback in the past. We've tried. Unfortunately, it's something that's out of our control because it's based on
I
insurance.
think these are submitted on a timely basis and gives the board, the committee and the board a little bit of time to make these decisions and recommendations. But you're in good, I think we're in good shape.
Okay. The next item is item 5, presentation and discussion on Brownsville Public Utilities Board's general liability, automobile, mobile equipment, crime, and excess workers' compensation insurance.
Okay, this is our insurance carrier for the general liability, automobile, mobile equipment, crime, and excess workmen's compensation insurance is TML, or Texas Municipal League. The board did approve the renewal last on September 12th, 2022 for the policy term October 1st, 2022, September 30th, 2023. This would be a renewal request. I'm just going to give you a brief summary. There is a breakdown on your presentation of each one of these items, but just a brief summary on all of our renewals and how do they look. For the general liability, we are seeing an increase, again, because our exposures have increased. For auto liability, we are seeing as well an increase. We do have an increase in vehicles that is out in the field. So we are seeing, they do rate our premium based on the amount of risk that we have out in our community, right? It is important to note that this is third party only, so it is for liability. If you be self-insured for damages that are caused to their own units. It's more cost effective to do it that way. We've verified that in the past. Mobile equipment is something like our backhoe, for example. Correct. So we are seeing a little bit of an increase there as well. And on workmen's compensation, we are seeing a small increase there. So we are looking at about a $46,759 increase in our overall. But this would include 5 different policies. So again, it's general liability, auto liability, mobile equipment, crime, and workers' compensation. So it's just bundled together because it's one carrier that covers them all. This is the coverage that we have prior to umbrella kicking in. So umbrella would be for anything above whatever this policy covers. Any questions regarding our TML? And I can go over them individually. There are additional slides on your packet to be able to go over them individually, or we can bring this to the board, or we can discuss any questions that you may have.
I think we can discuss further in executive session. I'm going to read the statement now. The Brownsville Public Utilities Board reserves the right to adjourn into executive session at any time to discuss any of the matters listed above, as authorized by Texas Government Code 551.071, consultation with attorney, 551.072, deliberations about real property. This one doesn't apply. 551.074, personnel matters. 551.076, deliberations about security devices. 551.086, public utility competitive matters, as well as others. So I think right now we can, yes, we can move.
We're going to move into executive.
Thank you. We're back from executive session. No action was taken, and it is now 9:40, and we are ready to adjourn this meeting. I don't need a vote.
Meeting adjourned.
Okay, thank you.